Hi, thank you guys for coming to TC, and thanks especially for coming to see us on a Friday afternoon in the weird part of the convention center. Really do appreciate it. Eric and I spent the last hour putting all these balloons on the chair, so you're welcome.
Yeah. It was fun, right? I blew them up myself.
All of us today are on the road. We're traveling. A lot of people in our companies are on the road all the time. They're not tethered to their desks, and neither should their data be, or their ability to make good decisions based on that data. So today, Eric and I are going to talk about Tableau Mobile, some best practices for designing content for mobile, and just the tools that you need, I think, to make mobile a really valuable tool for you and your users in your organization. As you can see from the photo on the left, I command a lot of respect around my house. I'm a figure of great respect. It's me and my son, Nicholas. I've been at Tableau for about 2 years. I came from Microsoft where I worked on Windows Phone. And well, that didn't have the happiest ending in the world, but Windows Phone was a cool project to work on, and it really fueled my passion for mobile. And so I'm really thrilled to be at Tableau in my second Tableau conference to talk about mobile with all of you.
I'm Eric Teutsch, and first of all, quick show of hands. How many of you had a Windows Phone? I'm sorry, I still loved that user interface, so I was excited as hell when I met Jim and found out that he came from Windows Phone. My name's Eric. I am a sales consultant at Tableau. I've been around for a little over 8 years. This, by a quirk of the calendar, is my 9th TC. And they're amazing and exhausting and fun, and I hope you guys have been having a good time. My role, sales consultant is just the title. My job really is to help people like you figure out how to use Tableau, and that whether that's desktop or mobile or server or any of that. And I'm out in the field with my customers all the darn time, and hearing about real problems and real things that they need to get done. And that's like amazing for me. It's really fun, really gratifying to be out there working with folks like you all.
And it makes sense for us to do this talk together. As a product manager working with our talented developers, trying to make the product, we sit in our building a lot and look at the wall. But we know the product, and Eric's out there in the world trying to figure out what to do, and together we hope that we're building the right thing, and if we're not, we want you to tell us and help us build the right thing.
Yeah, I actually even crash their sprint review meetings every couple of weeks and sit in and mostly take notes, but occasionally open my mouth and say, guys, got an idea. When I'm not out there helping people see and understand their data, I hang out with the 3 people on the right. That's us off in the wilds, waterfall hiking up somewhere near Hood River, Oregon. One of the rare respites from being at either a swim meet or a soccer game. Those are the people I go home to. So
let's get started. Where are we right now? It's 2019. We're 12 years removed from the release of the iPhone, 11 years removed from the App Store coming to the iPhone. And in that decade, we've seen just everything explode on mobile. And we have had a mobile phone for a long time, and so have everybody that we know and our Tableau users back in our companies. And it's easy to think that we've sort of hit a period of stagnation or saturation. But one, in terms of data, we certainly haven't. 2019 is somewhere in the middle of that slide, and we're in this crazy period of explosion of growth of data. And this thing is in zettabytes, so you know it's serious. Like, I'm not sure what a zettabyte is, but it's a quadrillion-byte or something like that. So we know that. We know we're in this sort of somewhere not even very high on the curve of the data explosion, but where are we in the mobile curve? The red line is sort of the amount of minutes we spend on our devices on average. We've crossed over. We spend more time with them than we do with TV. And that usage is really not just Netflix and YouTube and games, although, a lot of those things. Today, we have data that shows that more than half of emails are opened on mobile. And as we think about the sort of landscape of our mobile devices compared to, say, 5 years ago, we see communication tools. We all have them on our phone. We use Skype or We use Slack, Microsoft Teams, a whole bunch of communication tools, and they're common now on our phone. Storage solutions like Dropbox or Box or Google Drive or whatever, we all have them. A ton of productivity applications have come down, and now they reside on our phone. Email and calendar being two of the obvious ones. We all have one of these apps, and we're going to open it later and check our boarding pass. And of course, we have a lot of security tools that our organizations use to make sure that our corporate data can get outside through VPNs and firewalls, using mobile device management and other kinds of software that is now sort of common on business people's phones. Even if it's their own private phone, we'll take some of this software to help us use corporate apps on the phone and sort of keep those separate from our personal apps. And of course, last but not least, there are these sort of general business tools. Tableau and Salesforce are in here, and others that we use to get our work done when we're away from our desk. So we think about this sort of big portfolio. Our phones didn't really look very much like this a few years ago. And I think about something like Outlook, where Outlook on my phone is sort of mission critical. If you took it away from me, I'd be super pissed off. I need to check my emails. I open them there. I see if anything's on fire. I delete a whole lot of emails. I got that delete swipe thing working. And of course, my calendar, I know where I'm going and all that sort of stuff. But if I had to reply to a long email or a complex email, or if I had to organize a meeting with 12 of you people, I'd rather stick a pin in my eye than have to do. So obviously, I go back to my desk. So what Outlook has done and what we're trying to do with Tableau Mobile is be a mission-critical business tool, but not try to be everything. We're not a tool for creating visits. We're a tool for consuming. We want to streamline that experience. How do you log into the app quickly and immediately? How do you get to your content intuitively and directly? How do you see it cleanly and clearly, even on a small screen? How do you take action on that content that drives decisions? So all these things are sort of the principles that guide us as we think about developing Tableau Mobile. So a million times you've heard, as many times as you've heard that our mission is to help people see and understand data, we've heard it even more times. But it's true. It's a rule that we live by. And when we think about what that means for us in mobile, it's not some radical difference. It's just to extend that mission. How do we help people see and understand data wherever they are? Here in this room, here at this conference in Las Vegas, or even when you wake up in the morning if you want to check something quickly on your phone. How do we extend that mission to all the times and places where we want to be able to get access to information quickly, and we have the right device in our pocket or on our bedside table to do that. So what we'll do today is I'll start by talking about the app. We put this app out maybe about 6 months ago after working on it for a year. Last year at TC, we came and showed you the new app in beta form. Sometime around the 1st of March, we released it. And since then, we've been trying to improve it. We're going to continuously improve it. And then we saw some new stuff this week that impacts mobile. So we're going to talk about the app and sort of its use cases and its users, give a demo of that. And then we're going to hand the ball over to Mr. 10 TCs or whatever it is.
Just 9.
Okay. And he's going to show us how to actually use Tableau to do some cool designs that will make your mobile users happy. We think about users a lot of the times when we go talk to people, when Eric and I go talk to people like you're end users, sure, but you're also these top people. You're caretakers or champions, you're content creators, server admins. You have these roles in your organization where you're responsible for bringing Tableau in and making sure that it's used properly and creating content that your people are going to use. And a lot of times, what we think about are what we call managed users, the people that we are building content directly for, our executives. My VP is better at Tableau than I ever am or ever will be. But she's not interested in like poking around the app and searching for stuff. She's got work to do. So we want to create dashboards for our execs that are super great and which they can get to quickly and easily. We want to build dashboards for our sales force or the folks out in the hospitals or in the retail stores. Their job isn't to mess around with Tableau. Their job is to use it to get the job done. So a lot of us think about these managed users. And the question then is, what tools can we bring to make it easy to deploy the app, easy to get content set up for them, easy to provision those users so when they come to the app, they see what they need to see. And then there's people like us, a lot of us maybe, who are knowledge workers, and there's nobody really looking out for us, building dashboards for us. Our teams are self-service. We go to Tableau, we create data sources from, well, in my team's case, we have telemetry from the app. We create data sources and build our own visits from that. But even though we're sort of the unwashed masses, we want to be able to have easy tools to help people like us build mobile content that looks good and in which is easy to use. So that's sort of the landscape. You buy that?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm with you.
So far, Eric's with me. People have challenges. How many of you have deployments of any kind, mobile deployments of any kind in your organization? So we've got a few, but really it's not. Now, of those people that have deployments, how many of those are large deployments, widespread deployments, maybe hundreds of people or more? And now we're really down to just a few. A lot of us are sort of thinking about this, deciding if we want to do mobile, where maybe we're piloting it with just a few users, and we're trying to figure out a few things. One, will it work in our corporate security and IT environment? We have a whole team dedicated to that, and I'm sorry to report that you missed a talk about that a couple of days ago. But hey, hindsight is 20/20, but YouTube is also 20/20 in this case, so we can go watch it later. We really are trying hard to make it so that the app works in your security and IT environments. Nobody wants to compromise on this. We can't say to you, hey, just relax your security requirements, it's fine. The mobile app is great. Because no one's going to mess around with putting their sensitive corporate information on a device and sending that device outside of the company. You won't do it, and we don't want you to do it, so our team is dedicated to try and support all the common authentication systems and some that aren't so common, all the major mobile device management solutions, and a couple that are maybe not so common, and all the sort of common VPNs and firewalls and the tools that you use to secure your corporate data out there on devices, whether you own and distribute them yourselves or whether the workers are bringing their own device in, like most of us do today. So we've got to overcome that challenge, and we're working on it. If we are not there yet, if something you do we don't support, tell us, because the goal is for us to provide you with this support completely. Is the app any good? Is sort of how I would sort of summarize the second one. Does it do anything that I want it to do? How does it work?
I have a question actually for the audience. So how many of you have the current Tableau mobile app installed on your phones? How many of you had the old app installed on their phone? Improvement in the experience for those of you who did it? Yeah? I think the new app that you'll see in just a minute is actually amazeballs. So,
right.
It's Friday afternoon, so I can use the word amazeballs in a talk.
We certainly overhauled the app and made it new, not only to create a smoother user experience, and a new design, which we did, but also to give us a code base, a clean, modern, well-architected code base that can be the basis for future innovation. Today, and we'll show in a minute, we talked about metrics in the keynote today, and metrics has come to mobile in a way that was easy for us to do, in part because we had done this work. And so we want the mobile app to be a place where we continue to build value over time. So we haven't stopped, we're never going to stop. We're going to just try and keep making this thing better. So I want you to sort of think about the mobile app as you see me demo it today, in terms of what it feels like it can do for you, but also in terms of what it feels like it can't do for you, because we want to know about that. We want our efforts to make this thing better to be guided by your actual needs and not us rolling the dice or guessing about stuff like that. And then the last thing is, what about the content? If you take a big dashboard and you just drag the corner and make it small, well, the laws of physics suggest that it's just going to be harder to use, harder to see and harder to use. But Tableau dashboards are cool because one dashboard can support multiple layouts. And so a lot of what Eric's going to talk about is how do we make it easy to give you tools to create mobile layouts where we at least mitigate the compromise of being on a small screen. And I'll let you decide how well we're able to do that.
We ready to roll in?
Let's try it.
Why don't we take a look at the app here?
There's so many things that could go not right. Let's see if that's promising.
Hey, look, it's Jim's phone.
Awesome. I'm going to load the app. Right there you saw Face ID. We just added Face ID a few weeks ago as an additional security layer because our app, people don't want to log in on the phone every single time. It's really a tremendous inhibitor. And so Face ID is a way for us to unlock the tokens that secure the app and make sure that it's at least that the person is the right person every time they come in. So you already know what Face ID is. When the mobile app launches, we launch to favorites. These are things that users have indicated are the most important things to them by marking them as favorites. And they can be a bunch of different things. There's a dashboard up there. There's a whole bunch of new metrics, the new metrics data type, which I'll talk about in a minute. You can have workbooks or projects, worksheets or dashboards, or these new metrics as favorites. And so for a lot of those sort of managed users like your VPs or whatever, they might just live here. They might just have they get the things they need stored as favorites, and this is their home for almost all of their interactions with the mobile app. For the rest of us, though, we do want to have the power to search across the entire site or the entire server, and for that, we can explore. I'll use the Explore tool on the lower right here. And when I do, I see all the things I've looked at recently across this strip at the top, and this number on the right, as you see this number anywhere in the app, indicates the total number of these things, and I can always click to expand it. I'll do that now and see that we have a full page dedicated to things I've looked at recently. This happens to be useful if I was working at my desk yesterday with somebody and we were playing with something, and then today I'm on my phone, I'm like, what was that? I just know that I saw it recently, I can get to it quickly. But the heart I've explored is that all the projects are listed here. And of course, all the content on our server is going to be located in those projects. So we can open one of these things. And when I do, on Tableau Server, we just sort of show you everything. And you scroll it, and that's fine. You have the mouse, you have a big screen. It's pretty easy to navigate that way. On the mobile device, we've made a slightly different decision. We want to give you sort of a thumbnail capsule of what's in this project. How many sub-projects, 3 in this case. How many metrics. How many workbooks at the top level, how many views within those workbooks. And any of these can be expanded, like I can expand the views and see the full list. So if I go into any of these projects, I get that experience where I can see what's in this project super quickly, and then I can navigate and drill through. And so if we're interested in trying to understand what's on this server and how is it organized, this is a great tool. A lot of times, though, I kind of know what I want. I either know that Eric created it, or I created it, or I know a little bit about what it's called. And so I'm not going to do this deep browsing experience. I'm just going to search for it. So I'll click search and just type in a few characters here, trying to find leads. And again, we quickly found anything with the word leads in it, or actually with the LEA search term in it. And we showed those to you the same way. You can see what projects that search term was found in. What metrics, what workbooks, what views. So this is a way of us sort of summarizing content, delivering it to you in both the search experience and in the browse experience. So for those of us who are trying to find content, I think we've got a powerful tool for that. But let's go back to favorites and talk a little bit more about the content itself. I mean, we're really here to talk about the content itself.
I love the content.
And I'll start with metrics because metrics avoids any of this idea of compromise associated with mobile devices. It's a KPI. You create a dashboard, and within that dashboard, there might be a few numbers that you'd like to pull out of that dashboard and isolate as KPIs, and that's what metrics does. Identify a number, a couple of clicks later, you've isolated a metric. We've pulled that data out, we track it in a separate pipeline, we make it super fast and up to date, and in fact, when I favorite a bunch of metrics, my favorites page becomes kind of like a KPI dashboard. And all the more because these things are kept up to date, even out here at the tile level, right? We're used to seeing tiles in Tableau, like these dashboard tiles down below, that are static thumbnail images that are generated by the server. And their job is to serve as a visual reminder to us, oh yeah, that's right, it's the one with the little orange zone and the blue zone at the bottom. So it helps us, but we're not trying to extract information from these tiles except for that visual cue. Not so for metrics. These metrics are kept up to date, even at the tile level. And so at a glance at just my favorites, I have this way of tracking the information that's most important to me. I'll just show you a couple of quick things about metrics since it's brand new and since we're kind of proud of it. For example, I can go into one of these and I can, spoiler alert, I ruined it. I wanted to turn that off. So I could show you that you can see the metric across time, inspect the time series, and see the difference from now, the most current value, to some previous value. And also with this adjust and compare tool, you can change the time over which you want to compare things. And you can visualize that comparison with a comparison line. When I save that, now I have two lines. The blue one is sort of the current period, and I'm comparing it to, in this case, the previous month. So this is great. And a lot of our execs want these numbers. They want them fast. But we say that metrics are headlines for your data, meaning that they're not the full story. So if I see something weird, like the way this number seems to be diving at the end, and I want to try and understand why, we want to use the full power of Tableau for that, right? So I can click this information button in the upper right and learn a bunch of things about this metric, who created it, where it lives on the server, and what its actual definition is. But most importantly, I can see what the underlying dashboard is that was used to create this metric, and I can click on Connected View to go directly to that. So here's a dashboard that was created. And so, and the filter states are preserved from that filter state, which was used to create the metric, et cetera. So now I can dive deeper and sort of bring the full power of Tableau to bear. But a lot of times, if my metric looks like it's tracking and it's fine, then maybe I don't do this. It's totally up to the user, of course. One thing about this dashboard here, Eric, is it looks pretty good on the phone.
Yeah.
The zones, first of all, it's a simple dashboard, right? We should prove this with a more complicated one. But the zones take up the full width of the screen. They're stacked so that I have to scroll, but scrolling is great on a phone. And I can see what's going on here pretty quickly and easily.
It actually does exactly what it needs to do, right?
Right. But let's try a little bit more complicated dashboard.
You want to?
I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Before I do this, I'll point out there's a check mark at the bottom right corner of this thumbnail, and that check mark indicates that we've downloaded a local version of this viz so that we can get to it super fast, because when we launch it, we just call that local version. Perhaps more importantly, we can get to it even if we're not on the server. So when I launch this, first thing you'll notice is it's fast. This is the local version. Still interactive. If I'm connected and I want to see the live version and have access to the full range of interactivity, including filtering, which does require a server call, then I'll tap Go Live. Now we're waiting for the server. We got it, and we have this dashboard. So this is a more complicated dashboard. It still looks great on the phone. And I'm explaining this to Eric, which is ridiculous because Eric made this dashboard.
I did.
Now, in the mobile app, you can request to look at the desktop view. If there's something in the desktop view that you feel the need to look at, you can request it by tapping the menu and asking for the desktop layout. And we see the desktop layout. This is a nice looking, super well designed dashboard, but it has that shrinking effect. I just shrunk it and stuck it on the phone. And so while it's great, it's better on the phone, we believe strongly it's better to show these mobile optimized layouts. So a lot of what we're going to talk about now, now that I hand it over to the maestro over here, is how do we do that? How do we create something like this without doubling our efforts, right? I'd love to be able to tell you that you can do all that work to create your dashboard, and then with a small marginal effort, build this thing. And I am able to tell you that, actually, and we're going to show it to you in just a minute. So that's a little tour of the mobile app. We want it to be super fast to log in, to get to your data, to see metrics, even use your favorite screen as a sort of a KPI dashboard for your metrics. And to have vizzes on here with mobile layouts so that when you do drill through to those or when you want to see them, you see something like this, something that's just super clear and useful to your users. So, if only we had somebody on this stage that knew how to make this happen.
All right. First of all, I got to call out in metrics, the ability to link back to the original dashboard is just, again, really, really cool and really powerful in that moment. It's of course only powerful if that dashboard shows up in some sort of usable fashion on your mobile device, right? So let's go ahead and imagine, first of all, before I even get started on this, how many of you use Tableau Desktop to create dashboards, do analysis, things like that? So a good chunk of you, awesome. So imagine this scenario for those of you who do that sort of thing. My vice president, Kelly, vice president of sales, she asked me a couple of weeks ago to get after the sales metrics dashboard and do a kind of a refresh on that. And I'd been working on it, and I've actually already built most of the worksheets. But she came to me this morning and said she's going out on an emergency trip out into the field to go visit our various sales regions. And she doesn't want to have to pull out her laptop and crack it open and log into crappy Starbucks Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. She just wants to have all of the numbers at her fingertips. What do you do, right? Well, like I say, I've got the content already kind of built, got all the worksheets. So let's build a dashboard. Go ahead and just click into a new dashboard. I know she wants total sales. I know she wants profit by category. And certainly she wants the map. We'll drop that right there. Now, how was it that I actually go about creating a mobile version of this dashboard? If you remember in the olden days, you'd actually like duplicate the sheet and start building your own and call it mobile and that sort of thing. It's right there, right? This is something we rolled out early this year, I think,
yeah,
right? As well. This is the auto-generated device designer, right? And so the coolest thing about this, you'll notice it's kind of grayed out. That just indicates that it's in auto-gen mode. So if I pop back up to my default dashboard and continue adding another sheet, and I know we want total profit up here, certainly total sales, maybe also a title here. We'll go ahead and add this. Those are going to be sales. This is how you know, by that in particular is how you know that we do our own demos here. I should probably put that on a hotkey or something. So let's just do a quick little bit of formatting. And how about fit all, right? Typical Tableau, there are like 300 different ways to do any given task. Let's get that. And about like that. So functional, usable. Let's take a look again at what happens when we move over to the phone, the phone version, right? Same thing, it's actually just taken all of the zones up here. So all of the things, and we've just basically kind of, there's an algorithm that just numbers them and then stacks them in basically 1 by n, so 1 wide by n tall, right? That's about, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It creates, most times, really nicely usable functional dashboards that'll work well on a device like this.
Right, and the layout that I just showed a minute ago was what was generated just by the algorithm.
Yeah, exactly. And so the next question might be, well, that's great if I'm building a new dashboard. What do I do when I've got an existing dashboard that doesn't have one? Well, it's pretty straightforward here. If you open Tableau Desktop, you'll see this device preview option here. Come over here, select the device that you're looking for, in this case a phone. Pick your phone type. I have an iPhone 10. You simply add phone layout. And again, it creates this auto-generated, and again, it's sort of grayed out over the top, just indicating that Tableau will continually update this as you make changes to the other dashboard. If you do want to take control at some point, you can simply click on it. Tableau will helpfully prompt you, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Or you can just click the little lock button. So again, the device designer works really well. This auto-generation works really well for like most dashboards. It will create something functional and usable, and it'll fit, and it's on the fly, and it's unmanaged, and it's beautiful.
It's pretty good.
But Sometimes human intervention is necessary. I'm going to flip over to this. Actually, I'm very proud of this dashboard. I built it 4 or 5 years ago to demonstrate something called guided analysis. So the idea would be, well, what's going on in Mississippi? And then I could come down here, and if I hover over this, you'll see an option a tooltip option that would, if I clicked, it would take me to another dashboard, and we could do some more drill in a very guided, structured fashion that I, as the dashboard author, built. But you'll also notice that as I click around, we have these little KPI triangles up top. And as I select around the marks, you'll see those adjust. Pretty standard sort of Tableau KPI trick. But they're floating objects, and the algorithm doesn't always know quite what's best with a floating object. So if we do that same action, if we come over, add a phone layout, check this out. Right? Big triangles, yes, love those.
I just want to point out the algorithm did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
It made everything full width, and it stacked it up. So nailed it, I think.
Yeah. Well, of course. But here's the other thing, though, is that if I actually click into this so that I can interact with it, now we're actually in live mode. If I scroll down to the map, it all still works, right? It's just
the layout is not how we would.
Yeah.
We obviously would never ship this to our users.
Yeah.
So we want to think about that algorithm as a starting point. For simple dashboards that don't use floating zones, that have only a few zones, often it's pretty close to what you might want to distribute. But you still might want to be an artist. If you're Eric, you really want to be. And sometimes with floating zones, you do have to go in and make some changes. Even this stuff, which is egregious looking, is actually pretty easy to fix.
Yeah, exactly. So, by the way, if any of you are free between, say, 2:15 and 3:15 today and want to take a shot at fixing this for yourself, drop by my next session, which is hands-on mobile. So do that. But we'll come back in a little bit and do a bit more updating after this. But for the moment, let's come back and just talk a little bit about kind of how to approach design, at least at a high level. So, as content creators, which a good chunk of you are in this room, you're the caretakers of the visual standards for the organization. Your challenge, as Jim pointed out earlier, is to take content that's designed for a pretty good sized screen and make it useful here, right? So that people can actually make decisions when and where they're at, whether that's at an airport, 500 feet down underground in a mine where there's not much Wi-Fi from what I understand. And that does seem a little bit like a tall order, maybe going from a minivan to a Mini Cooper or something like that. But with a little thought and a little consideration, I think you can get there. So, pop quiz. What's that? Yes, it's a girl dancing, but what else is it? Anybody recognize that application?
Photoshop.
Photoshop. What do we? It is definitely late Friday, after data night out. What do we do with Photoshop?
Complex stuff with art.
We alter photographs, right?
Yeah.
We make people's arms too skinny and weird things like that. Sorry, I saw one of those click-throughs of Photoshop fails last week. So, but if you notice anything else about just sort of the general interface and what it might look like? Does it look a little like this thing? Right. This is a full-featured, in this case, photo editing tool. Right. Tableau Desktop is a full-featured analytic tool. Right. Millennials, what's this? I know there are at least a few of you in here. It's Instagram, right? What do you do with this feature in Instagram?
Pretend to be more popular than I actually am.
Yes, correct. And also, modify photos, right? You have a lot of those pre-built filters. I wish I had a joke for what my favorite filter is, except that I don't really use Instagram. So I've tried. I end up taking pictures of food and my cat, and that's about it. But you got to get the idea. This is the metaphor I want you to carry forward when you're thinking about designing for mobile. Big, complex analytic dashboards are amazing. And there are usually a couple of really key bits on those dashboards that are going to be important to somebody somewhere when they're not at their desk. Whether it's wandering around the halls with a tablet or walking an airport with their phone or whatever. That's the thing that you want to kind of keep in the back of your mind, is simplifying and still remaining useful. So, design considerations. Who, what, why, where, those kinds of things. All of the context around your design. People want to interact with this. They'll want to interact and they'll be clicking on things. They'll want to touch it. So design with that in mind. Design so that they can intentionally scroll and have it kind of work without selecting a bunch of marks accidentally or opening up a filter or something like that. But treat the design process as a hypothesis, right? Understand that some of the things that you do will work and some of them won't. Tableau makes it really easy to iterate and move fast on these things and test yourself, but please test with a coworker, a friend. Design something, publish it to server, hand them your phone and say, what do you think? And don't give them too much context and just watch them either succeed or fail, and then you know where you're at, right? And ideally, test it with the people who are going to be using that. And now within all of that, part of the design is to understand what's most important and anticipate what's going to be important for somebody like my VP, Kelly, and put the numbers that she wants front and center, top. In Western culture, we tend to read left to right, top to bottom, so that's how our eye tracking works. Other cultures go the other direction, but understanding where you are and how to put the things that they need front and center is critical to your thought as you go into this. Now, I've got a fairly lengthy list of things, and I'd actually rather show you this, but I put up a couple of examples, including the one on the kind of the lower portion there, the dark one, was actually done by Kelly Martin. Kelly was a Zen master. She passed away a few weeks ago. But I highly encourage you to seek out her old blog. I think it's actually being managed by another Zen master these days. She's done some beautiful work. And I thought that one was lovely, so I thought I'd throw that up there just as a little bit of food for thought and a little bit of eye candy for you. But as a Tableau guy, I'd actually rather spend some time in the product. So let's bounce back over and take a quick look at where we started, which is this thing, okay? And again, if you want to get your hands on this and kind of follow along and get a little bit of, build a little bit of muscle memory, please come to my next session. I'm shilling for that hard right now, aren't I? Let's go ahead and unlock this.
We've got to get out of slideshow mode there.
Oh, you're right.
It is tricky, but it is necessary.
It is, exactly. So I could have done that entire thing and none of you would have seen what I did. That would have been amazing. Okay, so I've already entered, I've already unlocked the dashboard so that we now have full control. Now understand that when you have full control, this means that Tableau is no longer going to update things. So if you make a change up here, it won't be reflected in anything down here. We won't, in other words, we won't actually, it's like trying to overwrite the work that you put into this. But that also means...
Once you say, I got this, then we don't mess around with it anymore.
Yeah.
We say, okay, you've got it.
Exactly.
All right.
The cool thing is that when this is up on server, it's a single thing. So when you favorite something in your browser, you open it up, it shows up on your favorite screen here on your phone with the mobile version. So here we are a couple weeks later. Kelly has come back from her emergency trip around, and it went pretty well, right? But now that she's kind of decided she's going to go out on the road a little bit more and still likes the idea of having it at her fingertips, she's asked me to polish it up a little bit, make it a little bit more usable and a little bit cleaner. So I, of course, being the enthusiastic designer and the person who will do anything that Kelly says because she signs my paychecks, I'm in. So the first thing I notice is that there's quite a bit of white space on either side here. And we've been talking about vertical, and vertical is really an important concept in phones because we all scroll, but there's space here, so let's take advantage of it. I'm going to use a layout container. For those of you who use desktop, how many of you use layout containers on a regular basis? Keep your hands up if you've never, ever been frustrated by them. Layout containers are amazing. They're really, really cool features. They are tricky and they're a little finicky, and you have to be really, really good at mousing, which thankfully I am usually. We'll see about Friday on a TC. But the first thing I want to do, though, is actually use this layout container to allow me to put profit and sales in the same dashboard. I actually, just logically, I think I want sales then profit. That looks a little weird, right? Because we've got that. So one of the cool controls here, nice, quickly, distribute evenly. And let's size this up. That's an awfully big filter, isn't it? So one of the things that when we go into mobile mode, we actually put a kind of a highest level layout containers to stack these things. And sometimes it causes a little bit of weird behavior with this. To make it a little bit easier to resize these things under my own control without having to worry about that, I'm actually going to select the layout container and then remove it. Oop, wrong button. Let's select and remove container. Thank goodness. Back in the day, there was no way to remove the container without removing everything. I'm very happy for that feature. So now I can resize this thing without impacting other things. So the next thing I notice is that I've got these two side-by-side filters, and they take up a lot of real estate. Now I could put them side by side and kind of skinny them up a little bit, and that might work. And let's maybe start with that. So let's put this layout container here, drop that filter in. And again, oh, look at that, I missed the layout container completely. Again, this is how you know we do live demos. Okay, so I'm going to put it there, drop it there. The worst part is for a moment I actually thought, I'm going to brag about how good I am at using a touchpad to demo. That was, okay, so there we go. I used a vertical layout container. Nope, did I miss it again? Hold on, let's see. Yes, select layout container. So you can see that that blue frame goes all the way around both filters. That's the key to knowing. And I've got that. So you can put them side by side. You can put them top to bottom, either way. The fail with this for me is that I don't want to look at the filters at all, right? And yeah, you can use action filters and things like that, and that's a great technique for mobile devices, make things really nice and touchable and interactive. But in this case, I've already got the filters. I just don't want to see them unless I need them. So check this out. My favorite feature introduced in the year 2019 is, if you make this thing floating, the anticipation is building, I can tell. Anybody used this yet? ShowHide Zones. Check out what you can do with this. I've got this little X button up here. And if I simply hold down my Option key and click, did you guys see that? Did you get what happened there? Let's check this out again. So imagine this is on a phone and this is my thumb. And I click on the little hamburger menu. We're all familiar, most people are familiar with hamburger menus at this point. Click on something and something else pops up. There are my filters. It's a little tricky to see because there's still some transparency behind there, but I've got my filters. I don't have my filters.
And if you had a little more time, you would introduce some opacity and put a border around it and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. There's some filter formatting that'll actually make that really pop. If we have time later, I might actually show you a completed version of that. But let's continue on our layout. So a couple of things that I wanted to point out with this first chart here. We've got a bar over line or a line over bar chart. You see an average line here. One of the really nice things, again, about building interactivity, honestly, this goes for both desktop, or both for browser dashboards and phone dashboards, is that if I select on this, that reference line adjusts and gives me that value. So sometimes if you hide the axis like I've done in this case, and I've only given really the maximum value here, you can actually select these things, select a mark, and be able to get some sense. This still isn't the greatest for individual touching, but it's not bad. Now, as I look down, I also notice that this dashboard is very, very tall. I also know that I don't want this sheet, so let's go ahead and remove that. And now it's really, really tall, and we've got a bunch of white space. So first, let's actually shorten it up a bit. So we've gone down to 950 pixels. A little bit more reasonable. I'm going to take this label. I might actually even hide this title. That's not bad, right? Bring this up. Now we can kind of distribute these things. Now, when I get to here.
Now we still got something to worry about up top, don't we?
Oh, Jim, I've blown it again.
It's so hard to fix it. How do we
wait.
do it?
Let's do this. Let's give this, I'm going to give the map a little less space, give the bar chart a little more space, and then
There we go.
our numbers are back. Awesome. So you can, you kind of get the idea. You could fiddle around with this a lot and just make sure that it's absolutely perfect. This is a demo though, so let's hold on that. But one other thing that I want to point out with this is that if you imagine this frame, so you can kind of see the corners here, that's the frame of the phone that you've chosen, right? So, and that would adjust if I picked a different phone. What I've done very intentionally down here at the bottom is left a hint that there's something effectively below the fold, for those of you old enough to remember newspapers. If you imagine this dashboard looking like this, a user might not have had any idea that there was something below the screen unless they accidentally scrolled, right? So this is just leaving a little bit of an affordance so that the user sees this and goes, oh, I can move down.
So something's peeking up from the bottom. And
Yeah.
You say, okay, there's more. There's more.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd do things like I'd probably, format this title, take a few words out of the title so that it fits on a single line, that sort of thing. Question?
Exactly with the title and the formatting, now that you've taken over control,
Yeah.
Tableau's now doing it for you with the layout. If you change the format to the title or change the verbiage just so it's one line, is it going to change it on the desktop?
Depends on where I change it. So if I change the title, yeah. What I did here in this case is I hid the title on this sheet and I put a new text box in to give you the hint. So there's another little trick for you. Yes?
Is there a way that, similar to text emails, where when you scroll up, you can keep the very top bar static with some kind of title on top?
Sticky header.
Sticky header.
A sticky header. See, I'm proud that I know what you're talking about, but I am not proud of my answer. No, but it's a good idea. It's interesting because you're right. As you scroll, you might want to keep something in view all the time. So we use that in the app when we're dealing with lists, but we don't use that on dashboards, and that's a cool idea.
So what do you think?
But the question was interesting because if something's inside a zone
Yeah.
and you alter it, that's going to be altered in the zones wherever.
Yeah.
But you killed an entire zone.
Yeah.
So did you kill that zone from the desktop
Nope.
too? Because don't do that, is what I'm trying to say.
That would be a bad thing, right? If we deleted it from the phone layout and it went away entirely.
Yeah, it's there on the desktop. The key is that we're talking about layout here. How do we handle these zones? And we can do those layouts totally independently, but the content of the zones themselves is one thing. And so things like reflowing text or whatever are going to flow across the layouts.
Okay, so we've already got a couple of feature requests out of this.
We do.
Excellent. So what do you think? Is this pretty successful?
It is. That's pretty great, actually. I like the way it looks. And, you know, obviously you get the hang of this thing over time, and you're not doing it on stage with a touchpad. But it is pretty easy once you have a good-looking dashboard to get a good-looking mobile layout.
Yeah.
Of course, I sort of think you're a cheater because you did it for this one instead of that one with the giant triangles, which I think would have been harder.
Yeah, probably. So again, if you want to take your own shot at it, you're welcome to. And again, 45 minutes from now or so. Question, yes?
So is this phone type specific or is that for all mobile?
When you pick a layout, you pick a phone size, and that's the mobile layout that's associated with that dashboard. And we have a bunch of phone sizes that are available, but it turns out that if you pick a common phone size, the dashboard looks pretty great on all common phones. I think maybe we overdo it with that nuance. Maybe we list too many phones because it doesn't really matter that much. And I think we create the impression that it does. So one of the things we're thinking about is how do we provide you with a little more clarity on that.
So as Jim pointed out, though, I did kind of cheat and not address the more complex layout issue. So I'm not going to actually demo that for you, but I will show you what I did for the other talk, because my co-presenter in that one, he and I independently took a swing at this thing. And I actually borrowed a version that I did a couple of years ago and then modified that. And that looks like this. So there are a couple of things that I want to point out. First of all, I completely bailed on the triangles. That was a decision I made 2 or 3 years ago. You could very easily just refloat those triangles
Resize
and replace them, size them. Yeah. And so that's one thought. As you notice, I did, and this is a slightly more formatted version of that filter. So you can see that I actually made the filter opaque, slightly darker, and I put a border around it. Just pops a little more. Play with that. The other thing that I did here, and this kind of falls in the category of space saving. Down here, you'll notice, first of all, I turned the headers sideways. There are other ways to label. You can actually label the line with the category if you wanted to, and then hide these completely. But the other thing, you'll notice that there's no date axis here, except that there is. It's down here on this. Just by lining them up, and you have to be careful that you're not like misleading your users, but in this case, I know that this entire line spans 2010 to 2013. So sounds a little bit like a cheat, but it's a really good idea for saving space and allowing, again, allowing your visualizations to speak rather than.
So even though that layout looked pretty bad at the beginning, it was because those floating zones were handled in a weird way.
Yeah.
You could have used those, or you could get rid of them, but you applied the same principles. You put stuff side by side that could fit side by side. You pulled the filters out and hid them.
Correct.
And then you organized your zones so that they made sense in the frame and that they were in the right sort of priority order for your user.
Exactly.
And that basic pattern of how we go about this is it's pretty standard, or it applies pretty broadly.
Yeah.
And it handles stuff even when the algorithm seems to have made a bad mistake. But in this case, the algorithm is. You could teach a kindergartner how to stack blocks. That's what our algorithm does. But it turns out that that's a super valuable thing because it fits them in the frame and it gives you a great starting point.
Yeah.
But even when it looks bad like that, you're not far away from having it look good.
Yep, exactly. Let's see here. So again, we've been talking a little bit about iteration. I just wanted to point out that as you test things, we make it pretty easy. We give you the frame here. You can obviously publish and look at it on your phone, but within the browser, if I've got a browser open, let's see if it's still here. So this is Tableau Server, or actually this is Tableau Online. You'll notice this little icon that almost looks like an iPhone 5 or so. If you click on this, it'll actually give you a little preview of what it looks like in mobile. I don't have a tablet layout in this case, but you can actually get a pretty good sense and scroll it. And just, so this is another way to kind of iterate on that.
Yeah. We see it in desktop as we build it. We publish it. We can check it on the server, get this preview. And then we want to favorite it and check it out on our phone. And really, that's where the proof lies. But we've built in these tools both in desktop, on the server, and of course in the mobile app itself for you to iterate on and sort of understand how these things are going to look in the real world on your users' devices.
Yep, exactly. So, let's pop back to PowerPoint. Just to wrap up. So again, in order to get this all right in the end, check your work both in desktop, browser, and on the phones. Again, hand your phone to somebody else so that they can test it without having your bias. And Tableau makes it really easy to iterate. Take advantage of that. I once built a mobile dashboard where I probably republished it 8 or 9 times in about an hour because I was building it for myself and I wanted to make darn sure that it worked the way I expected it to. It's fast, right?
Yeah. That's great. We really like what we've built with the mobile app last year and into this year and what we're doing with this algorithmic approach to generating mobile layouts. We want to keep making it better, so we want to kind of hear your experiences trying to use it, figure out where it's strong, where it's weak, where we could do more. Somebody suggested to me yesterday, just turn it on automatically, and we're not ready. We don't want to take, if someone builds a beautiful dashboard, we don't want to just scramble it automatically. Right now, we're not that confident in the algorithm. It's a great starting place, but we want you to be able to see things and make them great before you hit, and when you hit publish, we're not going to just take over and do weird things with it. And metrics, coming soon to Tableau Server near you, a couple of months from now. When those come, we think you'll be able to integrate those into your mobile deployments with really very little effort and really change the game in terms of how valuable your mobile phone can be as a data analysis tool. So thanks for spending an hour with us. Eric, we only have a few minutes, but we are here for questions now and for the next little while if you have any.
Exactly. And if you want hands-on practice, follow me to the next session. But otherwise, come up and ask questions. Thank you, everyone.